Oh, and Commissioner Peterson.
There he is.
There's Gary.
It's like, that doesn't look like. Okay, we're live and ready to go.
All right. Hey, Gary.
Gary, I think you're muted at your end.
Go down. There you go. Go down to your left screen and unmute.
Or the right. It could be left or right.
Yeah.
At the bottom of your screen, there should be a microphone.
Now I'm unmuted, right?
You're
Perfect.
there.
Okay, good. Thank you both.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's
Also, I'm sorry, I just wanted to say for Commissioner Peterson, if you click the participants, it will bring up a little screen, and at the bottom of that screen is a raise hand option.
Well, let's see. I can see John. I can see administrative assistant. Then is it Esther?
Strata.
That's Claudia
John.
Estrada.
Okay, and I'm on Lisa. I'll just push participants and, well,
Are you on a phone or a computer?
I'm on a telephone.
Okay,
My computer doesn't have a speaker.
okay. So it might be different.
Yeah.
You can
But at
physically
any
raise
rate,
your
I
hand
can
as
hear
well.
you. If you can hear me, I can participate.
Okay. If you want to physically raise your hand as well, that works also for if
Right.
you've got something to say. We'll let Commissioner Denny take over.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. I want to welcome each one of you to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for July 2020. And I hope that
June.
each one of you,
June.
25th.
pardon me?
We're in June.
25th.
June
Oh,
25.
June, I'm thinking July, I'm sorry. June 25th, 2020. That is the date. And I want to hope that each one of you are healthy and staying safe. It's important. So I think I will turn it over to John and we will proceed.
Okay,
Everybody
well,
here has more facial hair than last time I saw them.
Yes.
Terry,
I have
you
the
look
same amount, but
absolutely
less on
biblical.
I vowed not to trim my beard until baseball resumes.
Ah, okay. Oh, good.
well, we'll go ahead and do a roll call here. We have Mike Denny present. We have Stanley Green. We have Gary Peterson,
Present.
Terry Gottschall,
Present.
Edward Kantz,
Present.
myself, Claudia Estrada, who's our new administrative assistant. She's taken the place of Carolyn home. So we'll be working with her. And then we have Lisa Neisel, who's the city clerk, and she's pulling the strings.
Okay. All right.
The next thing on the agenda is your consent agenda. So as you recall, the way we package these is you can make one motion to approve the consent agenda, and that will also approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Earth? Oh, it's a dog.
My dog is the doorbell. It's the only time he barks is for doorbells. Does it really well. Very
Can you
quiet
mute
dog.
yourself, Ed, maybe for a few minutes?
Doing its job.
I'm on a meeting right now.
Okay,
All right.
I don't know if you all had a chance to look at the minutes. If you did, you were probably wondering why they were from a different commission. So the correct minutes were just recently posted right before the meeting. So you might
Sorry.
want to take a minute to look those over before a motion is made.
Whoops. There they are. All right. Has everyone had a chance to survey it?
Yes, I move that we approve the consent agenda, including approving the minutes from September 19, 2019, as presented.
Do we have a
Second.
second?
Second,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition, it passes unanimously.
Can I ask who the second was?
Gary Peterson.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All righty. So,
The next item on the agenda is your regular agenda for election of officers. So since this is the first meeting of the year, it's time to do that.
yes.
6 months in.
Yeah, 6 months after. All right. So let's have a call for nominations for the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Mr.
I
Green,
nominate
it looks
Mike
like you're
Denny.
speaking, but you are muted.
Who is?
Mr. Green,
Stanley's muted.
Oh,
if you unmute yourself,
There you-
there you go.
So I second the nomination of Mike Denny.
Mike Denny's got to agree to this.
right.
I will tell you, there's another project coming up later in this discussion, and I will probably be spending a lot more time with that. And I'm still in the midst of filming our desert series for The Secret Life of the Deserts. So I just as soon step aside and let somebody else be chair due to those other projects.
Is one of these projects, Mike, going to be your authoring of the book?
It is,
Okay, okay.
yeah. So I would ask again for nominations for chair of this committee.
Well, I'll nominate Stan Green.
Okay,
I would second if he's willing to accept.
yeah. Although Stanley?
I'm willing to accept.
Okay. All those in favor of Stanley as chair of the Historic Preservation Commission?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing no opposition, I congratulate you, Stanley.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Stanley.
Good enough. And vice chair, I need a nomination for vice chair. I would nominate Gary Peterson.
Second.
Gary?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do my best.
All right. So all those in favor of Gary Peterson as vice chair?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, congratulations, Gary.
Thank you.
And thank you both, Stanley and Gary, for stepping forward. Appreciate it. And with this, I hand this over to Stanley.
Okay, can you see me and hear me?
We can.
Okay. So let me get myself oriented to this new role for just a minute, please. Okay, next item on the agenda is the 75th anniversary book. John, are you going to report on that for us, or?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So we received two proposals, one from Donning Company Publishers, and if you recall last year, they were kind of the ones that reminded us that we were going to be coming up on a 75th anniversary, and we actually had a conference call with Jeffrey Bass on what they offer. And then we sought out another proposal from Kankakee Books. They're in northern Idaho, and they're similar proposals. I wrote up a scope of work kind of based on what I had seen in Donning's proposal, to try to get as close of a similar proposal as possible. You know, I'm sure there's differences, and so I don't necessarily have a preference either way, which direction you want to go. The Kankakee Books is a little more economical, and we would be able to do an all color book as opposed to half color, half black and white. Because we just don't have enough money under the what we budgeted to do a full color book under the Donning proposal. So
Is the name of the outfit from Idaho Kankakee?
I think it's pronounced Kankakee.
It's Kankakee.
Okay.
I've co-authored 3 books with them.
And I just was thinking, when I looked at the one from Donning where they said we could go all color, so much of our historical record is going to be in black and white photographs. I don't think going all color would really provide us with any benefit, if I understand correctly.
You know, I mean, that's a good point. I don't know enough about publishing, how that works out. Mike, I don't know if you have any experience where you can explain that or not.
I will just share with you what Kankakee does, and that is, even if it's a black and white image,
Did I?
even if it's a black and white image, they will clarify it, and it's very crisp. And if it's color, it's true to the colors that they receive. And so it's entirely up to this commission to decide which they want. I don't have anything to push either way. So, but I have worked with Kankakee over a period of quite a few years of doing books with them, and they are very very accurate, and they meet their dates that they have to meet. So
I
had a question. In a typical, on this book, is there very many pages that would be all text, for example? Or would this basically a picture book with comments?
well, I talked to Tarryd Dopp, who did the 100th anniversary of Walla Walla College book, and she had a strong suggestion that be about 50-50 photos and text.
Okay, so that would mean that that you have very few pages that are all text,
Correct.
and the color would be of great value, I would think.
Yeah.
I think what we were looking at is about 33,000 words. I mean, Mike, I don't know if we really talked about how many words, but that's kind of what the proposals were throwing out. As a
Okay.
number.
So at 25 cents a word, I think that's pretty good. No.
I know, I calculated out I think you're at 17 cents a word, isn't that what?
Well, it's possible. I mean, it depends. They put them out. I've not had that kind of luck. That'd be great. So.
Gary, I think maybe we're hearing conversations in your office.
Yes, unfortunately.
Is it possible that you could mute unless you need to speak?
Not a clue yet.
I will go ahead and try to do that.
We'll find.
Thank you. There we go.
Yeah.
Are there further comments or discussion regarding these two proposals?
I don't have anything to add. Looks like Terry has something.
Well, I was just going to say that the fact that Mike has worked with Kankakee Press and has had a good experience certainly sways me. Donning had an excellent proposal, certainly a very thorough one, but I think right now the experience part helps.
Thank you.
I have found Kankakee to be very, very accommodating. So if any of us have any suggestions to them about some portion of the manuscript or photos, they are more than willing to sit and listen. And if they can do it, they'll do it. So they have bent over backwards to accommodate everything that we've ever wanted as authors. So,
You know, a couple other things I would point out too that didn't come through in the quote, but in their email to me, they also offer to have our book made available on Amazon. I don't think that's something we would want to do right off the bat. I think we would want to sell them through the city to recover our initial expenses on creating the book. But at some point, maybe a year or two down the road, we may want to make this book available on through Amazon. They have, you know, that, and we probably could do the same thing through Donning. But and I think the cost to print additional books at a later date, I think in the batches of 100, or maybe it was 1,000. I think it was 100. It was fairly economical for us to do that, to keep the book in print. So
yeah.
My calculation here is that it was in batches of 100, $392 per 100. That's $392 per book at Kankakee.
Yeah.
Is Kankakee a total print process, or is it a photocopy process?
It's a print.
Good.
Yeah. And they send you drafts of they will submit to this commission a draft prior to printing, and then everyone can review it. And if you have any questions during the process while they're in the midst of editing or putting it together, they will send you the pages you have questions about or anything. So they're very good.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. John, this is Stanley. I have a couple of questions. We just briefly discussed marketing and distribution. At what stage in this process would questions of distribution be made? I'm thinking, for example, of the various libraries in the community, public libraries and libraries at different levels of academic institutions, and also marketing through various local bookstores, including those associated with, say, Walla Walla University, and then the locally owned bookstores in Walla Walla. So at what stage would decisions be made about how to distribute and market the book?
Well, I think that those would be discussions that that you as the historic preservation could make recommendations. I mean, those are great points that we need to be thinking about at some point. And I would look to the commission to make recommendations on those.
So I assume that would come later in the process, but I do think it's something we should be prepared to consider. Okay, does anybody else have comments or questions regarding these two proposals?
So just one more comment about your question, Stanley, and that is that I know that in the 3 books I've worked with them on, they like to have some idea of the number of copies that they need to publish initially. And therefore they would like to know some of the, what they call comp books, where they go and how many comp books you would like to have printed. And comp books are generally what go to libraries. So they're not charging those libraries for those books.
Mike, do you have a sense of at what stage they would like to have that information?
Well, they generally like it when after the draft manuscript is submitted.
Okay, I think we should put that on a future agenda to discuss those kinds of distribution issues. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further comments or questions regarding these 2 proposals? Does anybody wish to make a motion about recommending one or the other?
I can make a motion that we accept the proposal from Kankakee Books.
Thank you. John, I have a question. Do we recommend this to the city council with the city council making the final decision? Who actually approves the decision of with whom to contract?
Well, because of the amount, this will have to be approved by council.
Okay, so we're making a recommendation at this point. Okay.
Yep, you're making a recommendation that the council go with Kankakee Books. If that's
Okay. Okay, so Ed, are you willing to change your motion to being a recommendation?
Certainly, yeah, recommend to the council that they be selected. Of course, the actual appropriation of funds, I guess, is up to the council. So all we can do is recommend. That is true.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody want to make a second?
Second.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion on the motion to recommend Kankakee Books for this project? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, John, is there anything further to discuss regarding the book?
Well, I think it would be good if a couple of you would agree to act as an advisory board to Mike on working on the manuscript. Would that be okay with you, Mike? I mean, would you appreciate that kind of help?
The more eyes on it, the better. I've already got kind of an outline of chapters and what I would see as of value to people that would read about this town. And so, and I have a sit-down visit with Tarryd, Amat on the 29th. So.
Lisa, do you have, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, and then she's going to loan me a copy of her book that she did on Walla Walla College. And because this town arose around Walla Walla College. I just soon get the basis of the core of what she had to say. I haven't read her book at all, so. Anyway,
Thank you. So does anybody want to volunteer to be a subcommittee advising on this project?
I will.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gary.
I also had a question.
Go ahead.
I know that we're not supposed to meet outside of scheduled meetings. Since we're a commission, am I going to be able to, meet and work with Mike one-on-one, or how do we
No
do
more
that?
than, no more than 2 at a time can be meeting and working on this. So your subcommittee should be no more than 2. So Mr. Denny and one other person.
So is another commissioner willing to volunteer to work on this advisory subcommittee?
I'd like to.
Great, thank you. All right, so
So, Lisa, can you talk a little bit more about that, just to make sure it's very clear that the 3
Yeah.
of them cannot get together, but any
Right.
2 combinations can, right?
Only 2 people, and so if Mr. Denny and Mr. Goschel are going to be the 2 in this commission, you guys can work together on it, but you cannot discuss it even with one other commissioner outside of one of these open public meetings. So it's anytime more than 2 of you are talking about city business, which this would be considered city business, then that's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. And so it's very important that it be no more than 2 of you meeting regarding this.
So
to get
if it
some-
was, say, Dr. Gonchal and Mike Denny on Tuesday at 1 o'clock, it couldn't be Mike Denny and myself at 1 o'clock the following day then?
No, because just like in an email, like if you guys were emailing, discussing it, and then someone then forwarded those emails to a third person, that is an instant violation of the meetings. So the same thing, if 2 people are working on it and then you bring one person in outside of one of these public meetings, even if there's only the 2 of you there, it's been the 2 people collaborating, and then you bring that third party in to that collaboration, and it becomes deliberation outside of a public meeting.
Welcome to the world of bureaucracy.
Welcome to the world of the OPMA.
So
Okay.
I guess I'd like to just get a little more clarity. If we have a subcommittee of 2 people to advise on the project, other than, and now, so Professor Amott acting as editor
no, that's
isn't
not,
within this calculation because she's not a member of the Historical Preservation Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct. And even staff like John isn't a violation. It's just the 5 commissioners. There can only be 2 involved with it, other than discussion during one of your meetings.
Okay, so it sounds to me that we can't really have a subcommittee of 2 who then consult with either the author or the editor outside of a commission meeting, but could bring their deliberations to a commission meeting.
They can consult with the contracted people and staff or other people. They can't consult with another member of the commission outside of a meeting.
Right. So I'm just trying to think if we have Gary and Terry on a subcommittee advising on this, I'm just trying to figure out in my mind how it will work that's within the law. They could meet with each other. They could, and then they could come up with ideas. Let me just run this by and see if it's okay, if it would fit. So let's say they meet, they come up with ideas, and then they bring it to a commission meeting, and we have an agenda item where they discuss those ideas with the entire commission. And of course, that would include the author, Mike, Denny, assuming he's attending that commission meeting. So that would be legitimate,
Yes.
I presume. Okay.
Yes.
And then let's say at that commission meeting, in that open discussion, more ideas come up, and the subcommittee people agree that between that meeting and the following meeting, they will work on certain sub-projects or discuss certain things, and then we bring it up again at the next commission meeting. Would that be a workable model?
That is exactly the process, yes.
Okay. So I guess I'd like to ask right now, Gary, Terry, and Mike, are you comfortable with working in that, with Gary and Terry being the subcommittee, and then bringing what you've discussed to, I would foresee having a regular agenda item on this each commission meeting until we complete this project.
Okay, hold it. Gary and Terry would not be able to work with Mike.
I understand that until they come to the commission meeting.
Right. I was assuming you wanted the author as part of that subcommittee.
Well, that's another model. So I'm an engineer, I explore alternatives.
Got you.
So if right now I'm looking at having a subcommittee of 2 that does not include the author, and then they advise, but the advising would be done in a commission meeting. The alternative is that there would just be one advisor to the author, and the author and that advisor would be sort of a subcommittee, right?
Correct.
Because we can't, or there could be 2 individual advisors, but they can't discuss it with each other what they discussed with the author. Is that correct?
No, that would not be an option.
Right. So like one individual commissioner could have a discussion with the author, which is Mike, but neither of them can discuss that with other commissioners except in a commission meeting, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So we either have, in this case, 2 commissioners who have volunteered to individually work with Mike, but when any 2 of them are discussing it, they can't discuss what happened in their conversations with the other one, right?
Okay, I'm sorry, say that again?
Okay, so Gary and Terry have both said they would like to work on this project. Let's say Gary has conversations and or meetings with Mike about this. That's okay, but neither Gary nor Mike can discuss that content with Terry. Is that correct?
No, it is not okay for them to discuss. It's not about, it's not the specific content, it's the subject matter. So if they're working together, if Gary and Terry are working this subcommittee, they can have no discussions regarding the subject matter, the book, with Mr. Denny other than at your meetings.
I understand that. So let's step aside from that model for a moment and look at a different model. Okay, in this model, Gary and Terry do not meet as a subcommittee. They individually meet with Mike.
Nope. Not acceptable.
Okay.
Because it's 3 different commissioners talking about the same thing outside of a meeting.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it's the same timing or whatever, it's a discussion, deliberations, planning outside of the public meeting
Okay.
of
So
3 commissioners.
okay, so if we're going to have this subcommittee, then it seems to me that the viable model would be for Gary and Terry to be a subcommittee they can't discuss with Mike or other commissioners what they've done except within the commission. And then at each commission meeting, we would have them give a report of what they've discussed, and then we can all discuss that in a commission meeting. Does that seem like a viable model?
I think Mr. Denny has comment. I know, to me, I would think that would definitely be a hindrance on the production of the book to not have the author involved with the deliberations between meetings.
What
I would
about
agree.
having a subcommittee of one instead of two?
Well, I can fix this right now. I would leave the commission and be the author, and that would allow both to work together
And then you'll come back on when you,
after the book's published.
I think that would end up being an appearance of skirting the issues that wouldn't look very good for transparency purposes, just
So-
myself.
I have a suggestion, and Lisa, you'll want to weigh in on this. What if we have special meetings specifically to discuss the production of this book? I mean, it
That
might
is-
actually be cool, especially utilizing Zoom, because it would be documented on YouTube. It would be the only, I don't know, just an idea.
That is absolutely okay.
That's called a work session.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
If I could ask a question.
Go ahead.
Talking about the work sessions and so on, since both Mike and Terry are both published authors, I would be more than happy to withdraw my willingness to be part of the commission and just confine whatever I might bring to meetings and or Zoom work sessions as an individual member. I mean, they've both written stuff before. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Of course, on the other hand, Gary would be most familiar with the broad history of College Place. Maybe I'll step back and then just participate in a commission meeting involved with developing the book. I'm afraid that I have to admit that my knowledge of College Place history tends to be a little bit spotty and then tends to reflect baseball, of course.
So I guess one of my suggestion would be to go with the special meetings. Have after, say, the 30 minutes before the commission meeting starts, have a 30-minute special meeting before that, or a workshop, and then have the commission meeting after that. Just a suggestion.
So you might need more than one meeting per month,
Right.
possibly. And Lisa, how many days notice do we need to advertise for a special meeting?
Minimum 24 hours.
Okay.
Oh, so we could do one a week if we had to.
And
then
you may
maybe
want
the next
to.
month, none at all. Yeah.
You just have to
Depending on
make
what-
sure that it doesn't conflict with another meeting that the city, another advisory board that the city has going on. Because we are required to live stream them because of the fact that we're not having in-person meetings, and our YouTube channel can only live stream one meeting at a time. So as long as you're not conflicting with the schedule of the other commissions, and there is a minimum of 24 hours to post the agenda, you're good to go.
I think having that half hour ahead is a good idea. I think you can just plan on them.
Yeah,
So-
you could, yeah.
Well,
Do I
definitely
understand
on our
cor-
regularly scheduled meetings, I think that's a great idea. Is having an extra half an hour before the actual meeting starts. But if it's needed, if the group wants to meet more frequently, specifically to the book, then we can have these special work sessions. And we can figure out, we could even, Lisa and I could look at the calendars and bounce the dates off of you guys, but we could even just set, once a week, we're going to meet at this time through Zoom for the book only discussions. And that'll keep Mike on his schedule. Because Mike says he works best on deadlines. So every week we'll need an update from him.
Yep. So I can tell you right now that due to other commitments, this won't start until after the 15th of July.
Yeah, yep. No, I'm not expecting it to start until around then anyhow.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds to me that what we should look at to start out, and we can adjust this if we decide we need to do something differently, is to schedule a 30-minute work session ahead of our regular Historic Preservation Commission meetings, followed by the regular meeting, but have the work session focus on discussing what will go into the book and other issues pertaining to that. I think it's worth trying that model for a few months, and if we feel it doesn't work, or if we think something else would work better, we could move in that direction. Is everybody comfortable with taking that approach, or does anybody want to do something differently?
I think it's a good one.
Yeah, it works.
I would like to retain Terry and Gary as resources.
And if Gary is the only commissioner working on this outside of the scheduled meetings, that's not a violation. Is that correct?
That is correct, as long as it's only one of them working.
I'm great.
Okay, Gary, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I would entertain a motion that that Gary be an advisor to this project. And that we have a 30-minute work session ahead of our regular meetings to discuss the book process. Does anybody wish to make a motion to that effect?
I'll move it.
Okay, any second?
I would second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of Gary Peterson being an advisor to the book project and the commission holding a 30-minute work session ahead of each regular meeting, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, anything further on the book project? Okay, item 4 is reports. John, are there any further reports?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you an update that we have applied for a grant to DAP to do that ground penetrating radar of the Poor Farm Cemetery. So that's moving along. We'll be scheduling a meeting to present before their board here shortly. So I believe there were 14 or 15 applications in that grant category that we applied for. So our odds are pretty good that we will receive the funds for the project. So that's
Great. For the benefit of our millions of live viewers on YouTube, could you explain what DAP is, please?
Oh, you're right. The Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. It's the Washington State's agency on historic preservation, and a lot of the funding for that agency is funneled through the National Historic Trust federal dollars, and a lot of the granting money that we receive for projects is from federal dollars. They trickle down to our communities. So the ground penetrating radar, as the commission's aware, we have the old county Poor Farm Cemetery is in the city of College Place, owned by the city, and the headstones were overturned in the late 60s, early 70s when manufactured home park was developed around the cemetery. And so we don't know exactly where all of the graves are at. We can kind of see depressions in the sod from aerial photography that indicates where the graves are at, but we're not exactly sure. And so this ground penetrating radar will actually produce images, so they'll actually be able to identify where the bodies are buried fairly accurately. It'll produce maps will be created, GIS data will be created, and so it's just it's a neat project to help preserve that cemetery.
Great, thank you. Any other reports?
No, I don't have anything else to update you on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 5 on the agenda. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 16. So our regular time is 4 o'clock. So should we aim for a 3:30 work session, and maybe staff can get back to us to confirm that there's no conflict?
Well, there won't be anything done by the 16th, so.
Okay, so we won't start the work sessions by the 16th. Okay. All right, so we'll have our regular meeting July 16 at 4 p.m. and then look at starting work sessions after that.
And
Okay.
if I could just add that if you could try, as we're continue to use Zoom, if you could try to log into the meeting, 5 minutes before it starts, that would be
Right.
great. That way, if there's any technical difficulties, we can work those out and then get the meeting started as close to 4 as possible.
Right, and in fact, sometime outside the meeting, I'd like to work with somebody on staff about a couple of technical questions that I'm having a minor challenge with right now. It's not major, but I'd like to clarify a couple of things.
I would be happy to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. And okay, so closing items. So as the new chair and using a modality that I've never used when chairing meetings, I have a question, and that is, how do we handle citizen participation, citizen input, citizen comments in this mode?
If you decide that you would like to have public comments, there's no requirement for public comments, but if you want to invite public comments, then we can have public comments, and they just have the option. They need to make arrangements in advance. And they have the option of either coming in as an attendee, and as the person managing the Zoom meeting, either myself or Deputy Clerk Holm, whoever's managing the meeting, has the option of allowing them speaking time, or they can submit comments in writing, and that would be provided to you in your packets.
Okay, just as a matter of disclosure, I have a political bias in favor of public participation. So
I am totally have no issue with that whatsoever. So we do make.
I would like to facilitate processes to encourage whatever citizen participation people would like to provide in a manner that's orderly but inclusive.
Okay, so in the next meeting agenda, when we publish that agenda, I will, just like I do for the council meetings, I will provide the information for someone to be able to contact to make a public comment at the meeting.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any comments or concerns about what I just said and what we just discussed? Okay, so you don't have I should have disclosed this when you nominated me to be chair, but I just wanted you to know that that's a particular political bias I have.
I have the same bias.
Okay,
I think it is incumbent on us to make sure that the public has every option of joining us. So,
okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other closing items that anybody wishes to bring up? Okay, well, I want to thank each of you, commissioners and staff, for your participation, and we will meet again on July 16, and I wish you well between now and then. Have a great Independence Day, and I will entertain, do we need a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
all right, take care.
Thank you.
Nice
See you all
seeing
next
y'all.
month.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.